Hey everybody, and welcome to No Plan, No Problem, the weekly D&D advice podcast where two dungeon masters take a mythical quest to try and find 3 actionable tips for you to use in your next game. I am your dungeon master, Anto.
And I have studied the ways of the bald YouTuber, Matthew Perkins.
You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
And you can find all my stuff over at matthewperkins.net. Now today, Anto, we're going to be talking about a character class. We're talking about monks. We're talking about monks. Monks are kind of fun because they're a martial kind of class, right? They get stuff done by punching.
Yeah.
It's like you're playing that early Tekken game where in order to interact with stuff in story mode, you can only punch it. You punch the buttons, you punch the elevator, you punch the barrels, and you punch your friends. Now, monks are pretty cool. They get a bunch of crazy stuff. As a trope, I think they lean into the ninja category. That's what they're trying to do. They're doing acrobatic flips. They're punching a lot. They get lots of kind of Eastern-style weapons. And typically, those are the kind of tropes it falls into. Mechanically, they get... Oh, man. They get to defy logic with the stuff they do. The amount of actions they can take, the amount of bonus actions they can take, because they have this special ability, this resource called Ki, which is some kind of vague spiritual energy, I presume.
Yeah.
And they spend it to roll dice, pretty much as much as they want.
Yeah.
So let's get into monks. Who's going to be the first adventurer helping us with our monk questions today, Anto?
So the first adventurer helping us is Warped Wigwam over on the D&D subreddit, and they say, so I've got an interesting thing that's come up last night. The party was attacked by giant spiders. One of the spiders on a roof shot some webbing at the monk. Now, the monk wanted to deflect this range attack. The monk ability states that it reduces the damage of the attack, and if reduced to 0, it catches the arrow. But the spider's web does no damage, as it's used to coat you in a web to immobilize the prey, but it is a ranged web attack, a ranged attack. So the monk should be able to try and catch it, and they just want to know how people would rule that.
I always rule everything as yes, pretty much.
Yes.
So yeah, you can catch, because the ability, it's deflect. It sounds like they're, Wonder Woman the bullets off. But if it reduces 0, you actually catch it.
Yeah.
And I think even with some monk classes, or in some instances, you can even throw it back by spending a key point.
Yes, you might be actually. Yeah. So
yeah.
I think the primary thing for that ability is the deflection, and the kind of catching is the bonus. So I would definitely say spider tries to web you. Yes, you can deflect the web. I would like there to be something for catching it, because I like the idea of them using their ridiculous powers to kind of grab a ball of the web and throw some web back to the spider. That's a really fun kind of thought process.
Well, here's the thing. Sometimes it's fun to visualize this kind of stuff when you're coming up with a ruling. Like when you picture the deflect ability, like with an arrow or a sling bullet or something, you picture the monk snatching it out of the air. But with a web, which is kind of like a beam attack, I picture that kind of motion where it's like wrapping around it like rope, grabbing it before it hits you and then wrapping it up, and like now you've got this thing grappled, and it's got you grappled from a distance. I don't know. It's just such a cool visual. It's such a cool visual.
If there's two ways the web attack can go. It's either that beam, that's like beam of web, like Spider-Man's web, or it's more like a fan of web that comes at you, and you'd be kind of grabbing that. So I don't have any question that they'd be able to deflect it. 100% they'd deflect it, but it's how you do it so they grab it. I like the idea of if it was like a beam, like a Spider-Man strand of web, them dodging out of it, grabbing the end of it, and then using it like a whip almost.
Yeah. I just really do have to point out that, the question was, can monks catch a spider's web? And we both went, yes, and then started arguing about spiders.
Yeah. It's like, mechanically, probably not, but we're going to make it so.
Yeah. But, there's a way to resolve that. no matter how you resolve it, it's fine. The player's going to remember the time they did that, where they yanked that web out of a spider, or they caught that web in midair and did some kind of thing. And that's like a really fun way to reward. Like some dungeon masters might be like, the spider didn't get to use its cool ability. Oh, the spider didn't get to do its cool thing. I wanted to show the players how dangerous it was going to be. Yeah. This was a really deadly, exciting encounter, and the monk just ruined it with that ability. Like, hey, you just like played directly into that monk's strength.
Yeah.
Like sometimes it's really fun to target the high AC barbarian or something with melee attacks, just so they can go, I'm invincible.
Exactly.
I love that stuff.
Oh, one thing I think would be really cool. I'm a big fan of using the environment, both as a player and as a DM, and it'd be cool to flavour the catching of the web of if there was something around that the monk could pick up and have the web stick to it, and then be like, okay, now you've got a shield that will like have a chance to grapple. You can grapple people with this shield because it's covered in web. Like you've kicked up a board, you're holding onto the board is now covered in web, and now you've got a grappler shield.
Yeah, it's like one of those, the Velcro game with the paddles and the ball. What is that game called? Why did everybody have it, and why did it suck so much? But yeah, that's really fun. That's really fun, especially because that's what the web does. It restrains you or it grapples you.
Yeah,
Is that correct?
I believe so. It immobilizes you. I think.
I'm so sorry. I presume that you know everything. Like I just asked you, like my guy in the chair. I'll just ask Anto about it. Yeah, we'll ask Anto for ruling.
It's fine. You were like, it does this, and I was like, yeah, sure. Okay, it does that. Why not?
But actually, I suppose that's in the kind of vein that I do resolve these kind of things. We both just presumed, of course it works that way, because that's how we think it works.
Yeah.
And if the question is, can a monk perform this action, this kind of tangential action of catching the web? Yeah, of course, seems fine.
Yeah,
who cares?
I think that this is a perfect way to go, right, okay, how can you take this rule and make it even cooler? So what is there in the environment that you can use to make it cooler? What other ways can you take the rule, the spirit of the rule, like a little step further and create a more special moment out of something that doesn't come up mechanically a whole bunch?
Yeah, I love those special moments, man. I love those special moments. And I hate rules. I will fight any rule. I will fight them, okay? You and me ruled 3 o'clock after school. Oh, no, I rhymed. Yeah, rule of cool is the only rule that I like. Sometimes that can go too far.
Yeah.
Sometimes when players want to say like, oh, yeah, it would be so cool if my monk could catch this. Yes, that's true. But what about, it would be so cool if my monk could like jump on the back of this spider and then turn its head and then rear it so it attacks this other spider and poisons it. You're like, okay, that's kind of cool. And then somebody else goes, oh, I want to do a backflip over this spider. And suddenly like, well, hold up.
I mean,
now we're doing American
all
Ninja
of
Warrior.
These things, I would be like, yeah, okay, cool. You want to jump on the back of that spider and direct it?
Okay, but we're escalating, right?
Oh yeah.
So I guess my question is, where does it get that you go, oh, hey, maybe we should dial this back, or maybe we should start hedging your expectations a bit? Like, when does it get too far?
I think typically the rules will, or the mechanics that are kind of put in place will peter out before the players kind of reach that point. So if a player was like, oh, I want to jump on this spider and direct it, I'd be like, right, okay, make me an acrobatics to jump on it, and then some kind of animal handling or some check to like stay on it and control it as it kind of goes forward. And then the next player's like, right, okay, I want to backflip over this thing, right, you make me an acrobatics check. And as they start to get crazier, the DCs of all these things that they'd want to do would start to increase, and they'd start getting disadvantage on things. But for the most part, I'd be like, right, okay, you want to do this really cool thing, here's the series of mechanical elements we're going to use to imitate that, and at the end of it, I will still let you do the same kind of damage that you'd done as if you'd just done a normal attack, because otherwise you're not going to bother doing it, because if you're a barbarian, it's always better to just hit something. So if you want to do a bunch of wrestling moves or try and pick the spider up and break its back like Bane instead of swinging your great axe, that's fine. You can do great axe damage.
Yeah, I love that method of balance, because it's like they're having fun, great, and they're not punishing themselves, great.
Yeah.
Can I pick the tip for this one? Because I think I've got like it's kind of like a two-headed coin here. I think that the tip should be, even if your players have a strength, let them show off that strength by targeting them with like weaker abilities. For example, this monk, it has a strength against this web, hit him with the web so it can be so smart.
Yeah.
But on the opposite end, if you go, oh, my players are invalidating all my attacks, just target someone else.
Yeah.
Just pick someone else. It's fine. That's the two-parter.
Perfect.
Two-parter. Oh no, we're bringing back fighters. Okay, it's time for a segment we put in the middle of every show called Roll for Friendship.
Let's do it. So if you want to be our friend, the best way to do it is by showing us support and interacting with us across the internet. So if you're watching this over on YouTube, leave us a comment down below. Tell us what we've missed. Tell us what you thought about the show. If you're listening over on one of the podcast platforms, the best way to show your support and show your friendship is by leaving those juicy 5-star reviews and letting other people know what you found valuable from this show. If you want to be even better friends, we have a Patreon where we put out pre-shows where we get warmed up and kind of talk about all kinds of random things, and we also put out PDF kind of extra rules and little tidbits every now and again as well, and our patrons get all of that stuff.
Yeah, brilliant. And if you are watching on YouTube, don't forget to leave a comment. They're great. We love seeing them. Here's the thing. Normally I say some kind of joke after you do the kind of like, oh, call to action. Hey, everybody come hang out. Come be our friends. And you're so good at it. And usually afterwards I tell some kind of joke. But that time I was just listening to you and I couldn't think of anything. And then you finished speaking. I went, oh no. Oh, no.
Just blank white noise like, oh.
That's all right. I'm back with the living now. Hey. Thanks for doing that, Anto. Let's get out of this zone. Let's get out of the Roll for Friendship. Oh, I've cooked it. That's all right. Okay, I can bring it back. Bring
us back.
Okay, so our middle breakout segment today is we're going to do Stuff to Steal.
Yes.
And this is a kind of section where we rob a media franchise and look for any kind of playable or fun or cool ideas or content that we can import into a D&D game. And we've looked at this one before, but it's so perfect for mugs. I want to look at, again, Dragonball Z.
Yes. I feel like more than anything else, Dragonball Z has been our Stuff to Steal. Like, I'm pretty certain that we've done it more than once. And I'm okay with that. Like,
I kind of want to fit Dragonball Z into something where it isn't appropriate. Okay, we are doing Druids. Dragonball Z.
Yeah, I mean, what else we're recording today? We're going to do multi-classing and Fae. We'll find a way to get Fae in Dragon Ball Z. It's got no business being there. We'll find a way.
We'll put it in there. So I summed up Dragon Ball Z last time. Do you want to give a quick summary? What's the elevator pitch for Dragon Ball Z?
So Dragon Ball Z is an anime series about a group of magical friends who are filled with supernatural key-like abilities who go on a series of escalating adventures to save the world, where every time they get brought to the brink of their abilities, just about win by the skin of their teeth, and then an even more powerful villain shows up and they have to train and get stronger and better all over again.
Yeah. And what's fun is that they are explicitly doing martial arts.
Yeah.
Right? They do stances, they do punches, like they learn techniques from each other and use them on each other. But the way those martial arts kind of present is they are magic.
Yeah.
They are shooting like beams of lightning and
they have
stuff.
Scorching Ray, they can cast Dimension Door, like...
Yeah. And it's kind of weird that they learn these magical techniques pretty much by training their body and their spirit and their mind and essentially punching. Like, okay, so I remember one training montage specifically was, and this is something they stress a lot, like, hey, you can't beat me. I've been training in 10 times gravity. Yeah. What?
Yeah, the gravity thing, I remember as a kid, the whole training in extra gravity really fascinated me.
Yeah, I was like, of course. It all makes sense.
Of course that's how you get stronger.
Can you imagine? There's another thing they did that I'm sure ruined a lot of kids' joints by imitating it, is they would be like, they'd have a fight, and halfway through, it's like the hero looks like he's losing. Then he goes, I think you'll find I'm not even fighting at full strength. Takes off his shirt and it hits the ground like a boulder. It's like, I use weighted clothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I feel so much lighter now. Let's go. Do you like my drag? Wait, compliment my Dragon Ball Z voice.
That
How
was
do you feel?
Was very good Dragon Ball Z voice. It was. I was like I was watching the show.
Oh wow! Thank you. That's so kind of you.
I think that for monks, obviously Dragon Ball. There's so much that we can take from Dragon Ball Z for monks.
Yeah.
The thing that always comes back to me as kind of quintessential Dragon Ball Z is the kind of way that they dig on their reserves of energy. So you always have that point where they get to the point in the fight where it does look like that all hope is lost, and then they find some new inner strength and they dig deep to push them over that threshold to win the fight. But then at the end of it, they are just ruined. Quite often you have fights where people die at the end of the fight after winning because they're so exhausted. And I would love to bring that in for monks and beyond, just playing with the exhaustion system.
That's really fun. And what I like about that you've just suggested is that actually kind of ties into barbarian themes, because the fighters in Dragon Ball Z do behave like barbarians, where they're powered by anger, right? They scream a lot, and they unlock new heights by getting angry or desperate. Sometimes they do that thing, that path of the zealot, where it's like, okay, combat is over, and now I die.
Yeah,
that's a really good idea. So maybe like some kind of, let's call it for monks, let's call it a mechanic called desperation. Desperation mechanic. Is it something that like only, we've turned this into a stats town. Is it something that kind of powers on when they're at critical health, like if they're below 10 health or something?
I think that's a nice way of doing it. Otherwise, they could just kind of go semi-nova immediately. So something that's predicated on being below a certain threshold of health. And then I like the idea of them being able to, like, a one-for-one swap exhaustion levels for key points.
One-for-one swap. Can you explain that in different languages? I'm not quite sure I understand.
So I like the idea of, say your monks at the end of the fight, they're real beat up, and they want to pull off like one more big move, and they need key points to do it. They don't have any key points, so they go, okay, I'm going to accept 4 levels of exhaustion to give me the 4 key points I need to pull off this mega move.
Yeah. Okay. I love that. Do you think that is explicitly tied to the idea of having a low health threshold, or is that as well, or is that separate to this?
I think that what the low threshold does is it means that you don't have a monk who chooses to throw off their entire life immediately as the fight starts. Because if we're thinking about the fantasy that we're trying to create and emulate here, it's that desperation at the end of your tether, the last ditch effort that you make. And it doesn't fit in if when they've got all their key points and all their HP that they can do that. So maybe not tie it to HP, instead tie it to key points. So when they have no key points left, then they can start trading exhaustion for key points. Okay.
And what I was thinking for HP then was like HP measures how long you can stay in the fight. Right? And typically when you have low HP, you go, oh, I want to be careful. I don't want to get hit. I don't want to fall unconscious. Sorry for making fun of all the monks who are afraid of going unconscious. That was so mean of me. So what I want to do is like put something attached to the low HP that incentivizes them to take risks. It's like, but now I've got the juice. So they get to below, they get to 10% of their HP, and suddenly they roll max damage. All their attacks are max damage.
Or another way you could do it is like a twofer. Have an option for if you're out of key points, you can burn exhaustion levels to gain key points. And then the other one is if you are 10% of your HP, you get access to a new pool of key abilities. One of the key abilities is all my attacks do max damage.
Yeah, okay. That is actually it. And I want to let everyone know that every Saturday I jump on Twitch. And here, I figured out how to promote something out of the zone. Every Saturday I jump on Twitch and I make stuff for our Patreon, and it gets uploaded for people. I want to make this desperation mechanic for monks. Can we condense that into a tip? Is it just use desperation mechanics?
I mean, I think the tip would be, use desperation mechanics, trade exhaustion for key levels, for key points, and when you're low, get new key abilities.
Yeah. I think, yeah, I could talk about this all day. I love risk reward stuff and meaningful choices like that. That's so fun. Okay. Well, we've only got one more tip left to go.
We do.
Anto, you've got the good mail there. So who's going to help us with this one?
So the adventurer helping us with our last tip is one cooler guy from the D&D subreddit, and he's talking about the ridiculous speed of monks.
Yeah.
To surmise the post, he's basically asking how fast can monks move, and what would it do to them, because they can move, something like 600, 700, 800 feet in a turn with the right combination of spells and magical items. So what would that do? How would that actually play out at the table, and what would that do to the character physically and just to the people around him?
Well, for one, if your monk moves 800 feet in a turn, you can just put that initiative roll aside. You are not in combat anymore.
Yeah, exactly.
So I'll just explain the mechanics a little bit. So monks get an increase to their base speed as a part of their class. On top of that, they have an ability that lets them use their bonus action to dash. That means they could move, and then they could use their action to dash, and they could use their bonus action to dash again. Then on top of that, you haste somebody, and suddenly their speed is doubled, and they get another action on top of that through haste that they can also use to dash. So they're dashing 3 times in a turn and moving, and their movement is doubled. And pretty much like that's quite quick. Like too quick to even be meaningfully useful in any kind of material sense in the game.
Yeah, they are traveling like over 100 kilometers an hour at this point.
Wait, can you think of any reason? Can you think of any scenario where that would be useful? Not just in combat, just like in the game. Like what does that hit? What veins?
I think that again, we want to think about the fantasy that you want to create here. You want the monk that is this fast, they can move at such speed that they can react to things well beyond anyone else would be able to. So I'd want to think about classic media where you have a protagonist that kind of breaks the laws of speed to stop an event. So things like Superman, The Flash, Neo catching Trinity, all of those there is an event happening, like someone is falling, someone has fired a bullet, something is happening, and you can extrapolate that monk's incredible speed and go down to like the microseconds and be like, right, okay, in this microsecond, you're going to move this many feet and you'll see the bullet travel this much, and turn it into almost like a reverse chase where they're trying to get somewhere and they're watching the event unfold in slow time. But for everyone else, it's just the monk is gone. Like, blink and the monk is just gone.
That's a really interesting perspective for it. Like, especially when you take that cinematic approach, because that immediately informs me as a DM how you can describe a character moving fast. What you do is you describe the other characters moving slow.
Yeah, exactly. You take the Quicksilver from the X-Men, those scenes approach where everything is in super slow motion for everyone except for the monk. And then mechanically, I'd probably run it as some kind of skill challenge. You're moving that fast. You are going to have to make incredibly precise adjustments to anything. So if there's a patch of difficult terrain, that terrain will likely be deadly to you because you are moving at such incredible speed. If you lose your footing, you're going to turn into a bullet because you're then just going to be flying through the air.
Well, you turn into a skateboarder. You hit a nut, you die.
Yeah, exactly.
We're revealing the fact that we don't know how long a foot is because we don't use that measurement. But like, is it 800 feet a second? Did the post say? Like,
the post says 600 feet, but you could probably bring it up a little bit. I imagine that there are ways and means to push it. Like 800 feet is going to be about 100 miles an hour, somewhere in that ballpark.
I know we said we weren't going to get bogged down in the numbers, but suddenly, like, I'm obsessed. Did it say a second? 600 feet a second or 600 feet around?
In the 6 seconds. So it'd be 600 feet, 100 feet a second.
100 feet a second. Okay, I'm thinking in terms of sandwiches. 1 sandwich, 2 sandwich, 3 sandwich. That's the only way I can think of a foot. That's the only thing that America made good with a foot.
So
that and shoes, I guess.
If you drive by miles, it's 68 miles a second. And if you're kilometers, it's 109 kilometers a second.
Okay. 109 kilometers an hour.
An hour. Yeah, an hour.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that is mighty quick.
Yeah, and it's again to draw in on the second tip again. I would, in that situation, it stops being a second by second, round by round event, and it becomes more of like a cinematic moment. And for me, those moments kind of matter more than the mechanics. So I'd be like, right, okay,
yes,
you're not sure that you're going to get there in time. You can try and push yourself if you want to try and get more speed out of yourself and go even faster beyond what you'd be able to do mechanically. Let's figure out where you can start spending key points to do it. You can start burning exhaustion to do it. You can start making other checks to push yourself beyond what you otherwise would be.
Yeah.
And for something like this, I'm happy to go to a near unlimited speed, when they've got lightning coming off them because they're going so quick.
Yeah.
There's a sonic boom, because the imagery that creates is so cool, and it would be such a memorable moment that I'd be willing to throw almost all rules aside to facilitate them turning into like just a railgun of a person.
The way you've spoken about this, you've actually kind of made me feel like kind of romantic about monks. Like I feel really fond of them now, and they're not typically a class that I like. I'd like to circle back to this, but I just want to touch on one thing, is that monks are martial. And even though we did cast haste on the monk in this situation to get half of that supernatural speed, even running 60 k's an hour is frankly BS.
Yeah.
And there's going to be someone that wants to say, well, it doesn't make any sense that you can run that fast. Right? It doesn't make any sense. You don't have any magical powers. You're just running, like nobody can run that fast.
Yeah.
And monks, typically, a lot of the things that they do and a lot of the tropes attached to them are them defying real-world logic.
Yeah.
Now, one thing that you and I did just then, well, I mainly did, is I got obsessed with those numbers. I said, how fast is it? How fast is it? I think the tip should be, don't do that. Who cares? Like, when people go like, oh, well, no, okay, you're falling off the cliff. Okay, well, what's terminal velocity? Okay, so you're going to be traveling this much feet. And, and then it's just not fun. Who cares?
I think that there are a lot of situations where working out the numbers aren't fun, but there can be situations where that could be useful, because when you're moving this fast and you're in this kind of space, the regular mechanics that you come across aren't really going to make a difference. They're not going to apply. So going, right, okay, working out terminal velocity, doing a little bit of maths and saying, right, okay, even at your higher speed, you're not going to be able to reach them. That's when you can use those tools to be right, okay, we can break the rules now if you're willing to accept the consequences. You can push your body further than it's ever gone before, but you're going to start taking damage from rupturing your muscles. You're going to start taking exhaustion. You're going to potentially die if you hit something because you'll be going so fast.
You hit a bird.
Yeah.
Well, what? So the tip that I suggested was don't pay attention to the numbers. But now you're saying we should. Are we fighting?
Always.
Is this a fight? What do you want? What do you want to write down? You've got this. You're the scribe. You choose.
I think the tip should be to just ignore the rules for a cinematic moment like this. Like these.
Okay, good.
Rules are so bonkers that trying to make exact rulings is always going to result in a bad time for someone. So just accept that the rules are being broken. The rules are breaking themselves, so just pile in on it and break them more. Yeah,
that's great. Well, that means that in front of you, right on your beautiful little tablet, you have 3 tips.
I do.
Can you do me a favor and read them back to me? What do you got?
So tip number 1 was to let the players show off their strengths and special abilities and, invalidate your things as a dungeon master. Or if it doesn't work, just target someone else. Tip number 2 was to trade exhaustion for key points, and then at 10% of your HP, get new key abilities with that kind of desperation mechanic. And then tip 3 is just break all the rules for that cinematic juice.
Oh man, monks are way more fun than I would have thought before we talked about this. Have you ever played a monk?
I've never played a monk, and I've never been super interested in playing monks, but I am now. I think that taking those, looking at them from the kind of cinematic perspective changes them somewhat. I've always only looked at them from the mechanical perspective, and they are very good mechanically, but they're so good mechanically, I think that can make them a little boring. But taking that cinematic approach, there's juice.
I had the exact same feeling, except the thing about the mechanics that turned me off, not that they're too good or they're too strategic or whatever, it's that they're a little bit too dense. Like, you get to roll too many dice, you have too many options to choose from, and there are real consequences to choosing the wrong thing or like squandering your resources. And I just don't really enjoy thinking like that in combat.
Yeah.
But hey, this has been really fun. Well, my name, everybody, let's wrap up the podcast. My name is Matthew Perkins. You can find my stuff over at matthewperkins.net.
My name is Anto. You can find my stuff across the internet at icarus-games.co.uk.
Now, the song that plays us out every single week is named, oh man, what's it
All
called?
Together Now.
Oh, thank you. By a band called... It is, correct.
Yeah, this is the first time I've done it. Yeah, we've been doing this for 25 weeks.
Oh, wow. What a nightmare. Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll catch you later. It's been no plan, no problem.
Goodbye.
All together.